They told us she wasn't wearing it, that it was folded in a drawer, that they dressed her in something else that night. But what if the evidence, stained, soaked, and silently cataloged, tells a different story? Blood on the front, urine on the back, saliva across the seams. The Barbie nightgown wasn't just near her, it was with her. And not just that night, but at the moment it all went wrong. Now match that with a blanket wrapped in both fluids, a sheet peeled off the bed where something happened, and a testimony that dances around what those fluids won't stop screaming. Because when blood and urine share the same fabric, the story doesn't just change, it rips wide open. In this episode, we're continuing our analysis of the intersection between the blood and the urine, a forensic overview. Welcome back. Welcome back. Last time we were talking about the early stages of creatinine and the serological testing of creatinine on some of the material from the forensic report of JonBenet Ramsey. And we were kind of I showed you guys this, kind of looking at some of the places where the urine showed up, and not only the urine showed up, but also the blood. And we talked mostly about the urine part. And one of the most interesting things to me was that there was urine on the comforter, but not only was there urine on the comforter, there was a small amount of fecal matter or fecal matter on the comforter of JonBenet Ramsey. And what we started talking about is we started kind of setting the stage for this idea that it's possible that JonBenet actually got up that night. And we came to that conclusion, or we started working through that conclusion, because we started seeing things like a blanket and two sheets and a blanket, and how there's urine on the sheets. There's urine on the comforter. There's a lot of urine, a good amount of urine here. There's a lot of urine on this blanket, right? And we started to ask, And then in some of the interviews that we pointed out, I think Tom Trujillo asked Patsy, did JonBenet ever have nosebleeds? And Patsy said, no, not that I know of. I know she would pick her nose, but not anything crazy. And so I wondered if he asked that because there was a little bit of blood on one of the blankets and also a little bit of urine. So I was wondering if he asked that in order to kind of get a sense of, where this blood came from, if it could be explained away by a nosebleed or something like that. And so Patsy said, no, not that I know of. So anyways, we got mostly through the urine part, and we hadn't really talked about the blood part. But before I move forward, we're going to talk about the blood part. But before I move forward, I want to send a special shout out, special thank you to Trace the Ace. I want to say huge thank you to Trace for continuing to support the channel. This is not Trace's first rodeo. Trace has continued to support the channel throughout the past month and beyond. So thank you so much, Trace. Always appreciate you. Big hug. Shout out. You know how it is from the Cato way. Appreciate you. And I hope you enjoy this next video. So last time we left off, like I said, we were talking about the urine and all such as that. And there were a couple things that I found interesting, and I wish we had more access to. Steve Thomas, in some of the interviews, in the 1997 interview specifically, was talking to Patsy about this whole, and Tom Trujillo was talking to Patsy about this whole, urine fiasco and stuff like that, and bedwetting and getting up during the nighttime and all such as that. And John had mentioned that if basically both John and Patsy said that JonBenet was a heavy sleeper and she wasn't awake, and when asked about the pineapples in 1998, John basically said that JonBenet would have had to, have known the guy to not, scream bloody murder and go kicking and screaming and all such as that. JonBenet would have had to, have known him, because she wouldn't have just sat there. She would have put up a fight. And coming off of being, woken up, basically jarred from her sleep, because she sleeps so heavy, apparently, taking after her dad, because apparently John sleeps heavy. And and so Patsy mentioned that she doesn't wake up JonBenet to go to the restroom at nighttime. If JonBenet sleep, then she's letting her sleep. Before bed, if JonBenet is awake, then she'll take her to the restroom. But if she's asleep, Patsy's like, no, I don't get her up and wake her up. Now, however, Steve Thomas said in 1997, in the interviews with Patsy Ramsey, Steve Thomas said, yeah, hey, Nidra, talking about Patsy's mom, said, yeah, Nidra told us that, not only does she, wake JonBenet up, but JonBenet, she said she'll catch a couple of kicks and a couple of elbows, from JonBenet when she wakes her up. And then, Patsy wasn't aware of this, and Patsy was like, oh, well, what can you say? She doesn't like to be woken up from her sleep, And basically, I brought that point up because John said something similar with the pineapple, is that once you wake JonBenet up from her sleep, is that whether it's for food or for pineapple or for going to the restroom, she will scream. She will fight you. Patsy said she just wasn't sure what JonBenet would do. But they were saying JonBenet, she will scream. She will fight for herself. She will defend herself. And so there's a little bit of feistiness there in JonBenet, in that when she does not want to do something, she gets a little feisty with you, right? She fights back a little bit. And the fight back might be physical. Okay. And that's what we were kind of setting up to say. JonBenet, in a certain state as a child, may not understand the implications of being physical to the degree that she's being physical, but she is being physical. Okay. And so it kind of sets the stage that there may have been some physical altercation with whoever came in the house to kidnap her, or whatever happened to her late at night. But we're also analyzing, because what they were asking about in the interviews is that would JonBenet have gotten up that night? You didn't wake her up. Would she have gotten up that night? And we were kind of going through some of the evidence to point to the fact that, well, maybe JonBenet did get up that night. Sometimes when JonBenet would get up, and Patsy said this is very seldom, but sometimes when JonBenet would get up, she would go to Burke's room. She would either sleep through the night. If she used the restroom on herself, she would sleep through the night, and just wake up in the morning. Patsy said she removed the pull-ups from JonBenet and just basically let her wet on herself. I don't know, to teach her a lesson. I don't know what she did that for, if JonBenet wasn't ready to come off the pull-ups. But I guess Patsy thought this was a great move. Patsy also said that she hadn't consulted with anybody to get help from on this issue with JonBenet Ramsey. She hadn't even consulted a Dr. Buff really in that way about this whole bedwetting issue. And now Dr. Buff was slightly aware, but Patsy said, no, I didn't really ask for help, like that. And I really didn't. Not only did I not ask for help, I didn't consult anybody else. Outside of this, I didn't consult friends or family. But we also highlighted in the Alan Prendergast article from Westword, I think, is that he quotes Priscilla White as saying Priscilla was aware of JonBenet's bedwetting issues. Now, Patsy in the interviews says that her friends, specifically the White children, they're potty trained. They don't have any problems. And so Priscilla in the article is quoted as saying something to the effect of, well, yeah, I saw Patsy putting JonBenet in these pageants, and, I kind of thought about it because JonBenet was still wetting the bed, and what, she hasn't even got that problem out of the way. Why are you putting her in pageants? And so she said, she relayed the fact that she gave Patsy a book called Surviving Ophelia, I think it's called. And check the article out if you have it. It's a pretty good read and stuff like that. I also recommend Missing Innocence by Anne Louise Bardock from Vanity Fair. And so those are two pretty good ones. And so we kind of see that Patsy has talked to somebody about this. She has reached out to somebody about this urine problem, and they're trying to, through the interviews, they're trying to keep the urine problem under wraps as if it's not a big deal. Patsy's discussing it with, the investigators, and she's saying, well, it's not really that big of a deal. I've raised big kids who have the problem. She's specifically talking about Melinda. Melinda, to the age of 8, was wetting the bed and all such as that. And, Patsy didn't think it was an issue. And so she just thought it was normal. And John didn't really know too much about it. John didn't think it was an issue as well. And so, they just don't see an issue with it, and they're trying to suppress that. But we know that JonBenet had been to the doctor about 27 times in about 3 years, and we calculated. We said, if you take out the 2 or 3 summer months, right, last part of May, early part of August, be about a month, right, and then you take the June and July out, and you do, basically that's 9 months. You do 9 months times 3 years. That is 27 times, right? That's the math. I can't make it up. That's the math. And so basically that equates to JonBenet, when she's in Boulder, going to the doctor once a month. Okay. And so we see that it's possibly a bigger issue than they want to let us know, because when they came and they collected stuff for the analysis, they tested the shirts, the pants, the blankets, the Barbie nightgown, the comforter, the sheet, a couple of sheets, and all such as that. And we found in this, and I could show you this as well, but I like this. I like to show this. We found that there was there was urine all over the place, right? There was urine on the shirt. There was, yeah, of course, urine in the underwear. Urine on, I'm sorry, this is blood. I'm sorry. There is urine on the shirt, in the pants, on the blankets, on the comforter, on the Barbie nightgown, on a couple of sheets, on a blanket, on toilet tissue. There are certain parts. Well, I haven't touched them yet. I guess that's what I'm going to touch on these first today. Let's dive right in. Okay. This is going to be the 98 interview. I think it's page 183. This is John's interview. No. This is Patsy's interview. In 183. And this is in 1998. And they're showing John a picture, and they're saying, hey, there's been some remodeling in the house and stuff like that, and it doesn't seem like you guys had toilet paper holders throughout the house. And both John and Patsy were like, oh, that was a quirk of the house. We spent so much money doing other things that this is one of the things that we just forgot, and that was just one of the little quirky things all around the house and stuff like that. I said, okay, cool. um and so Lou Smith says, I want to just show him just one. And Mike Kane says, yeah. And then Lou Smith says, this picture of a toilet here, take a look at that. John says, well, it looks like it's been used but not flushed, right? And that would have been taken fairly shortly in the after the scene. We were just wondering if it was her habit not to flush, or would she have gone to the bathroom that night? I think Lou Smith jumps in, and John Ramsey says, Patsy would know better than but I don't think the kids are particularly good at flushing the toilet, so that could have been earlier. I don't know. Lou Smith says, by the way, that's photo number 19. And John Ramsey says, John, and I think photo number 19, photo number 18, when you're going through these, photo number 18, photo number 19 are of JonBenet's bathroom. Because I think, I can't remember the guy's name. He was asking Patsy about this, and we talked about this last episode, when we were talking about the first part of the urine. But anyways, by the way, that's photo number 19. John Ramsey says JonBenet had to have been very tired that night. She'd been up early for Christmas. They had been playing all day. It was just a whole day. She was absolutely sound asleep when I put her to bed, and I can't imagine her to have even gotten up to go to the bathroom. And Lou Smith says, even after she had gone to bed, would she have got up to drink anything? John Ramsey says, no, I don't know for sure. Burke does now, but I don't know that she did it. And, this little statement right here kind of threw me off when he said, I don't, because it's like, what Burke does what? because you're telling us that Burke stays sound asleep. Burke stayed sound asleep all night, didn't get up, didn't do anything, and you're telling us JonBenet would never. But as we talk to you and we ask you different questions, you tell us it's not only possible for JonBenet to get up and wet the bed. There's a myriad of things that JonBenet could do. She could stay asleep and wet the bed and just get up in the morning and deal with it or what have you. Or she could get up, change her clothing in the bathroom and then go back to bed. Or she could get up and jump on the other bed. Or she can get up and go in Burke's room and jump in his other bed. So there's several things that JonBenet could do during the night. And Burke the same. Because sometimes Burke, when he slept in JonBenet's room, jumped in the other bed, slept in JonBenet's room, according to the interviews. And sometimes that was because he used the restroom on himself. And so it's possible now that these kids are moving across the hallway, right, in the middle of the night. And you're acting as if that's not possible at all. And we're asking you certain things to certain questions. We're asking you certain questions, trying to get at certain things about what's the possibility that your kids, and John is up here screaming about the DNA analysis and the forensics. But I'm telling you, this is what the forensics show. This is what this is when you look at the analysis. This is what the forensics show. Even back in 1998, as John is prior to John giving the interviews in June, I think June of 25, June 25th, somewhere around that area. This is what they had found. We got urine all on her blankets, and then we have Patsy saying, and I'm just giving a little bit of a recap. We have Patsy saying, "Oh, if Linda Hoffman would come over and she'd probably get there about 9 o'clock. She'd come 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And she'd come at 9 o'clock. But, I would get up before Linda would get there. I'd get up before Linda would get there. Basically, if Linda wasn't there in time, I'd get up and and go downstairs and just basically rip the sheets off of JonBenet's bed and put it to, throw them in the laundry, throw them in the washer and stuff like that. Yeah, the sheets. There's no white sheets. If you look at the what you call it, if you look at the pictures, there's no white sheets on JonBenet's bed, and those are supposedly the white sheets. Listen to me now. Patsy said in the interview when she put JonBenet to bed. This is in the interviews. She said when she put JonBenet to bed, she didn't cover her with the comforter. She said she ran when they got home. She said she may have, she said, I don't know if it was me or if it was John that went in front, but I ran forward to turn the sheets down or whatever, and I went behind him or whatever, but whatever. She said, I turned the sheets down and I turned the comforter down. That's what I would do. And we put JonBenet in bed and I just put the white covers over her. I put the little linen covers over her. I didn't put the comforters over her because, pretty warm. It was, pretty warm and whatnot. So I didn't want to. And then they start asking her, it's like, it was kind of pretty warm. Why would you put long johns on her? Like, if you've ever worn long johns are hot. Long johns do a pretty good job of trapping the heat. And it's like, yo, you might have to pull the covers off if you're wearing like yo, if you're wearing long johns, then you're probably outside, because I used to wear long johns under my clothes when I would go out into the blistering cold up in upstate New York. I would wear long johns. I started wearing long johns. I thought I was going to thug it out, basically, is what I was going to do, coming from Texas. I thought I was going to thug it out and just basically wear, a coat and some warm-ups. Not put on some long johns. So basically, long johns can trap in heat all by themselves. So if it's already warm, why would you put long johns on JonBenet? And then, yeah, you see what I'm saying? This doesn't make sense. But when we go and we examine those pictures, we can clearly see that there's no white sheets on that bed. Why are there no white sheets on that bed? It's possible there are no white sheets. Are you telling me that the intruder pulled the white sheets off the bed? You got to stop somewhere. At some point in time, we have to allow the intruder to do the actual crime. Right? You've got to stop. Because at this point, the intruder has done everything except fix the roof. My goodness. The intruder has done everything except be a good Samaritan and fix the roof. Because the intruder he's going around to this back window, he's going around to this back door, he's maybe touched this bad, or he's maybe touched this over here, and I might do a video on everything that the intruder is supposed to have done. He snuck up through this window. Man, I saw somewhere, and in passing, one of the comments in passing, that somebody was like, "There's no evidence, no proof. The intruder went through this window and out this window." Did he? Did he? I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but not even John and Patsy Ramsey believe that. We don't even have a, that's what I'm telling you. That's what I'm trying to get you to understand. There is no clear path in which the intruder came in and went out. We don't know. You ask John and Patsy, just go through the interviews. You don't have to believe me. Ask the dishes. Just go through the interviews. I'm telling you, just go through the interviews and you will see it's going to be one thing after the other. Oh, the intruder may have gone down through this, the intruder may have gone down through this window, this broken window, came in and went out. Right. Okay. Okay, sure. But then we start hearing things about, oh, the back door to the butler's pantry was open. Okay, did the intruder come in through the butler's pantry or what? And then you start asking John, and John is like, oh, in JonBenet's room. I'm telling you right now, it's y'all who watch me, it's in the interviews. Something's wrong with this window right here. In JonBenet's room, you talk about JonBenet's room. Something's wrong with this window right here. And they're showing them a photo of JonBenet's room, and they're talking about it's in my Santa Claus, my videos on Santa, Bill McReynolds, and the whole Santa Claus fiasco. But basically, they were showing him pictures and saying, okay, what about this? And he was in JonBenet's room, and he was like, oh, this window over here, these curtains, they should be tied up on the other side. And it didn't show the other side, but it said, John was saying on the other side, those curtains are tied back. But man, I can't even tell you that because like I said, I'm gonna do a video on that later on, what Patsy said, but it's in interviews. But this side, on the left-hand side of the window, if you're facing the window, you're facing the balcony on the left-hand side of that, and you'll see the pictures if you just go look up Santa Claus, JonBenet Santa Claus bear, Santa bear is what it was. Santa Claus bear, and you see the pictures, you'll see the window is not the window. The curtains are not tied up, and John is making the claim that it's possible that the intruder snuck in through JonBenet's balcony. And Patsy went even further on that to open up a lane for the intruder to come through that. If you've read the transcripts, you know what I'm talking about. But Patsy opened up a lane to even further allow for the intruder to come through JonBenet's balcony window. And that's what I'm saying. Where exactly did the intruder come through? Because from what you said, you found this window was wide open. My God, the intruder can't come through 3 places. And when you start putting stuff together and the time that the intruder had to have been in the house to do some of the things that the intruder did, that's what I'm saying. The intruder would have had to be in that house for like 6 hours after JonBenet was dead. The intruder would have had to be in that house for 6 hours after JonBenet was dead. We're going to talk about that more and why I say that. Some of you may know why I'm saying that. But that's where this stuff starts to get out of whack. And it's like, no, that don't fit. I'm sorry. So anyways, when we start looking at all this stuff and you're telling me that JonBenet did not use the restroom on herself that night, or JonBenet, she just got picked up by an intruder, I might cut that out, and I might challenge that and say, you know what? What if she actually used the restroom on herself that night? What do you mean? Well, the reports say that she has urine all over a blanket. urine over shirts and pants, blankets, a nightgown that she was not wearing. Let that sink in. A nightgown that she was not wearing. How do you get urine on a nightgown that you're not wearing that's supposed to be in a drawer? And that's see what we're talking about. So at some point in time, this individual switched JonBenet from the clothes that she was wearing. This is what the intruder did. What intruder does this? Switched her from the long johns and the star shirt that she was wearing into the nightgown and the soiled pants on the ground, and then assaulted her, and then put the what you call it back on, and then tried to stage the crime scene. And this was all for hating John Ramsey, or this because they didn't like JonBenet. I'm confused because this solely seems like it's an act against JonBenet. It seems like a direct action against JonBenet, but she has urine everywhere to prove to us JonBenet may have used the restroom that night. She not only may have used the restroom, but we have urine on toilet tissue, and the toilets aren't flushed. Oh, that may have been earlier on during the day. Okay, you think so? So let's go to what Patsy said. I believe I have what Patsy said here. Um, yeah, page 140. And this is in the 1998 interview for John. Page 140 for Patsy. Patsy Ramsey, not necessarily anything else in number 19. No. So we're talking about number 19. I just want to go back up. Okay. So Patsy Ramsey says whatever. I think they're talking about construction paper and making jewelry, and JonBenet sitting in front of Burke's room and stuff like that. They were showing her a picture, and she was sitting in front of um, sitting in front of Burke's room for Christmas making jewelry kits and stuff like that. Patsy Ramsey says, well, like construction paper and glitter and paint and glitter and the glue gun and stuff. Trip the Month says, now, did JonBenet get a jewelry kit or a jewelry making kit for Christmas? Patsy Ramsey says, yes. Trip says, did that have glitter in it? If you recall, Patsy says, I can't remember. I can't remember. Trip says, and you, before we took a break, you got a little upset. How are you doing? You okay? Um, Patsy says, I'm okay. Now, I'm not even gonna push that point. I'm not. Trip to Must says, well, let me just say this, and you judge for yourself. Patsy and John basically said the Boulder Police Department, they were predatory. Essentially, they treated them horrible. Is what they were kind of what they seemed to be getting at. You know, I'm just kind of paraphrasing. These people were very rude to us. They were mean to us. You know, they were hostile. That's the word. They're hostile. They started off hostile to us. And now I will say that the cops tend to ask questions over and over and over again, and you get a little frustrated after that. But in terms of being hostile, I haven't seen that in these interviews. Asking, hey, offering breaks. Hey, do we need to take a break? Patsy be like, no. It's like, you sure? Water, anything? No, I'm fine here. And Patsy said, oh, I'm fine with my. If you've seen the interviews, you know what I'm about to say. But if not, we'll talk about it. I'm fine with my. Oh, why you got that? Huh? That's funny because I see that here in your home. Hmm. And if you like it, then I can imagine you'd pass it down to your kids. Just a thought. Anyways, so this is how you doing. Like how you doing right now. Tripma says, yeah, did you have any medication during your break or anything like that? Because you said you bought the Ativan. Ativan is like a antidepressant of some sort, or trying to help her with the stress and stuff like that. Patsy Ramsey says yes, but I didn't take it. Um, Trip says, if you wouldn't mind letting us know if you do. And Patsy says, okay, I'm trying to be as nice as possible because I want to make sure that you're doing okay, and we don't want to be, oh, I don't want no stunts. I don't want no stunts of, oh, I was out of my mind, and you guys questioned me while I was out of my mind. I'm asking you right now, Are you in a good headspace? That's why he's saying that. And so Patsy says, okay. Tom says, I think we left off, finished with number 18, and it's a bathroom. So I go to number 19. Patsy says, this looks like somebody went to the potty and didn't flush. Okay, is that out of the ordinary? Not terribly, no. Did you take JonBenet to the bathroom prior to putting her to bed? No. Would she have gotten up during the night and gone to the bathroom? Possibly. If she did, would she have flushed? Patsy Ramsey, not necessarily. Tom, anything else on number 19? Patsy, no. Thomas, I did notice a roll of toilet paper is sitting. Um, Patsy says it was not a roll holder in the bathroom. They said, was that unusual? Mike Kane asked the same question. Was that unusual? Was there a reason? No, there was that common throughout the house. Patsy says, no, we bought the house. Some of the bathrooms had toilet paper holders and some didn't. I mean, a lot of little quirky things like that. Anything else unusual? Patsy says, nothing unusual. Let's go to photo number 20. This is the bathroom where we kept in things and da 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 behind the tub. But I think that's actually going up into her room and stuff like that. Going up into her room and stuff like that. But anyways, here we have a discussion about JonBenet's bathroom where she didn't flush. And so that's what I'm saying. When we put together, and let me bring it back up. When we put that together with toilet tissue that has urine on it, and we have covers that have urine on them, then what are we left to believe? But JonBenet did get up and use the bathroom that night. And not only did she get up and use the bathroom that night, she was actually pretty normal in what she did, pretty unusual in what she did. Go to the bathroom, I change my clothes, I take off my pants, and I leave them there. And I wonder, anyways, I go to the bathroom and I change my clothes and I leave them there. Now, somebody, and we know they said that they put JonBenet in her bed. Now, there are no white sheets on JonBenet's bed or sheets on, because I don't know if they were white or not. I assume linen sheets are always white. That's what I've grown up with, and that's what I always use. But let me just say, there were no linen sheets on JonBenet's bed, and Patsy said, I take the linen sheets off if they need to be washed. So it leads me to assume that at some point in time, at nighttime, JonBenet was yanked up out of her bed, and or she came up out of her bed, and when there was an opportunity, Patsy went up and got the sheets to wash them. So JonBenet did get up during the night. And if JonBenet got up during the night, we know Linda Hoffman Pugh wasn't there. We know probably Patsy was there. Probably. And Patsy probably went up and took those sheets off the bed while JonBenet was up doing whatever. So that would mean then that at Patsy was up and JonBenet was up for a time period. And we know Burke was up for a time period. That's what the evidence is showing, because Burke told us he was up. Burke told us he was awake. Anyways, let me move on because I'm getting wrapped up in that already. Where was blood found? We just saw on the shirt, parts A and B. There's some blood on the shirt. They didn't say different parts, but it was on the underwear. But we know it was on the, let's say, the middle region, the cutoff region. If you've seen the pictures of the underwear, it was on like the cutoff region, not on the whole thing, but on just like the cutoff region right there of the private part. It was on the tape, obviously, parts A and B that was over her mouth and stuff like that. That obviously there was some on a blanket, and there was a good amount on the Barbie nightgown. And so, as we talked about before, we already start drawing comparisons when we look at something like this. Not only is there urine on it, which would imply that JonBenet was wearing that, and it might also imply that JonBenet was not wearing long johns because it'd be too hot in the house to do that. Nidra, let me make sure I got everything. Oh, I don't think I did. I don't think I did. I was about to There's another thing. Okay. Okay. I gotta go back then. Oh, let me go do this first. Something else weird. I'm gonna go back to 1998 with Patsy Ramsey. And this is Patsy. Okay. And I will confirm this. I will go and confirm this just so y'all know. Um, talking about the medication, blah, blah, blah. They were asking Patsy, this is about some of her stuff that she's using. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Some of the stuff that she's moving. I'll talk about that at some other time. Here it goes. Okay, thanks. I think if we could check the notes where we left off yesterday, 273, 4, 5, and 6. We talked about stains on the pillow. Next is 277. Can you describe that? Tell us what it is. Um, Patsy Ramsey says, looks like her underwear drawer, one of the drawers there in the bathroom cabinet, so on and so forth. But I'm honing in on stains on the pillow because I said stains on the pillow, stains on the pillow. What is that? Let me find it. Okay, this is the report I was looking for. Colorado Bureau of Investigations Laboratory Report, submission date 3/16/1998. Date completed May 28, 1998. Um, exhibit uh, number 251, the pillowcase. Presumptive serological analysis indicated the presence of amylase enzyme found high concentration in saliva. So saliva is found all over a pillowcase. Not only that, but presumptive serological analysis indicated the presence of creatinine, substance found in urine, on the pillowcase as well. So we see that not only is there saliva on that pillowcase, but there is urine, saliva on part F of the pillowcase, and urine on part F. And those are just a common, and that's just one common area. Um, we don't see I, we don't see J, we don't see N, but we see a common area P. No pun intended. We see, so F and P are common areas for saliva and urine on this pillowcase. And so the investigators are asking Patsy about a pillow. And I'm talking about a pillowcase in which there is urine on the pillowcase. How? We talked about we talked about uh uh um let me find it. Poop on the comforter. How? Which brings me to, I'm glad you asked. If I go back in my notes, yep, this is Patsy's 1998 interview for Patsy. Probably closer to the bottom of the page if I remember. That's right, blah blah blah. So the answer would be no. Talking about JonBenet going to the doctor and getting anything invasive and her being around, like when she goes to Doctor Buff, like, hey, um, Patsy mentioned in one of these interviews that she had had a conversation with Burke. Well, she had had a conversation with JonBenet about, at the age of 4, about basically people not invading your no square. Nobody except mommy, and Patsy had the conversation with JonBenet at the age of 4, according to Patsy. She said nobody but mommy and Dr. Buff with mommy present. So they started asking her questions, a series of questions about, did you ever have to go and run out, and do you, and at that time, do you know if Dr. Buff, you know maybe was alone with JonBenet if you had to drop JonBenet off and run out. And then Patsy was like, well, in those cases, if I had to do that, then the nurse was there. Okay, so Patsy's paying attention to stuff like that. And so she had a conversation with JonBenet about that and basically saying, you don't walk in on Burke when he's using the restroom, you knock because, that's he's handling his private business. So kind of teaching JonBenet about privacy. And like I say, JonBenet is 6 years old. So JonBenet is, and we talked about how JonBenet was starting to drop the baby fat. So she looks like she's developing well into a young woman where, not a young woman, but a child to where her mental capacity is intact. And her mental capacity, now she can comprehend and understand some things and respond to some things with a level of maturity that she may make mistakes and stuff like that, of course, but she's getting a handle. From what it looks like, she's getting a handle on who she is as a person, and she's expressing that as a person. And so um, Patsy Ramsey says, well, she would, like we talked about earlier, the wiping habits weren't terrific, and she had urinated. Maybe and so she had urinated. Maybe she wouldn't wipe properly, and her underwear would get wet, little damp, which would cause a little irritation, and like a diaper rash. And the same with bowel movements. And so, what I'm wondering is if at some point in time, because you said you watched the covers weekly. Did JonBenet have a bowel movement just a little bit during that Christmas week? I'm wondering that because, like I said, man, the facts don't lie. They don't. And just so I'm being thorough, because I don't want people like, oh man, you're making this up. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. And I know those of you who rock with me. I know you understand, but I'm just trying to. This is not me. Colorado Bureau of Investigations laboratory report. Submission date January the 8th of 1998. Returned April the 1st of 1998. They looked at various things. The comforter is number 18, right? These are blood samples that they collected from other people, just so you know. When John Ramsey tells you they didn't look at anybody else except the family, that's a lie because these are three people at least that they bought in. Of course, in addition to the Chris Wolf, in addition to the Gary Oliva, in addition to the John Mark Carr, in addition to the guy that they ran to North Carolina over, right? So number 18 is the comforter. Okay, we go down here to the serological results. And we find presumptive serological analysis indicated the presence of urobilinogen, a substance found in fecal material. In the following exhibit, 18U, a small part of the comforter. What was 18? 18 was the comforter. I'm just trying to be thorough. So we can get back to this. We see some sort of patterns of blood. We've already looked at that. Sort of the intersecting patterns of blood on the nightgown. This pattern shows that blood was detected both clothing and bedding materials. Let's get back to this, suggesting multiple points of contact with bleeding injuries, intersecting the presence of blood in urine. The intersection between urine and blood is critical. The Barbie nightgown, exhibit number 17, had both bodily fluids present on parts A through E, I believe. Yep, parts A through E. And urine on parts I, J, and M. This indicates that JonBenet was either wearing the nightgown or it was in very close contact with her body during both the trauma and the incontinence events. This contradicts statements made by the Ramseys, who said she did not wear the nightgown that night. The nightgown's presence in the wine cellar, despite those claims, is therefore highly suspicious. Similarly, exhibit number 16, the white blanket, right here, part A, shows both blood on part A and urine on several parts. If we go back up, well, I'll just use this because I like using this one. Number 16. And then crazy amount of urine. That means she urinated all over this. That's what that means. That's what that means. That was a heavy point of contact for JonBenet. right? Suggesting it was either used to wrap JonBenet after the event or was present during the trauma, or we were upstairs and this is something that JonBenet used the restroom on. These biological intersections reinforce a theory that JonBenet was redressed and staged after the incident occurred. The presence of blood and urine in distinct but related parts of the same items paints a more disturbing, layered picture of what may have happened during her final hours. This foundational section sets the stage for further forensic breakdown in upcoming segments, right? Because not only, and I have to say, you have blood and urine on a shirt. So this came in contact with JonBenet's body. You have urine on some pants, so she may have urinated on those pants. And I think these may be the either the pants in the bathroom or the long johns. You have blood on the underwear. You have blood on the tape. But these two right here, a little bit of blood and less of this, but more of this on this, urine and blood. And I'm honing in on these two parts because these to me indicate items in which JonBenet, because we're not just talking about blood, we're talking about parts in which JonBenet may have come into contact with as in the matter of having it on her body while she was asleep and using the restroom on it and then carrying it through to a place to where now the small part of blood on this one makes me think that this blanket was placed on her after death, and the blanket soaked up urine and a little bit of blood from somewhere, just like a speck of blood. So I think this was post. I think this was post. I think this is the same thing. I think we're talking about. I think this has to possibly do with the Silver Star shirt. They found a little bit of urine, maybe on the tip of it or something like that, and then a little bit of blood, right, from somewhere. This may be something that she was redressed in. Um, but this, I think these were on the bed. Specifically, these. I think these were on the bed, and JonBenet was asleep, and she used the restroom, and it flooded all of these things. That's what I think, and that was the reason for her to get up, try to wipe herself, throw throw some tissue in the toilet, not flush it. Further letting us know that JonBenet did get up that night. This directly would contradict the fact that Patsy and John said that JonBenet did not get up that night. We already know that Burke contradicted and said he got up that night afterwards. And Patsy said, no, I was asleep. I was knocked out. I was done. But if those covers are ripped off of that bed and Patsy said, I normally do that, that's something I normally do, and I throw them in the laundry room, then it's possible that Patsy was up as well. And not only is it possible that she was up, but it's possible that she was up and she was moving around the house doing some stuff. She was not just waking up to go find JonBenet, having used the restroom on herself, or checking on JonBenet. She was up possibly doing some other things, moving around the house for other reasons and in other ways. And that starts to paint a picture toward the triangulation of why we see things like this. To why we start to see things like this in the DNA report or in the forensic report when we look at something. And let me what was this is the okay, this is a shorter one, so I can go through this. That we start seeing stuff like from the Bodie technology report. We start seeing their fingerprints on the nightgown, and where we see Burke and Patricia cannot be excluded. Your fingerprints cannot be excluded. Your DNA is there. It's possible that your DNA is here. It's possible that your DNA is here. And it's possible that Burke's DNA is here. So we see Burke in 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is about, when we take these 4 parts, this is about 25% of the story, I would say, in terms of um, almost, I would say, definite possibilities with the fact that he cannot be excluded. His DNA is in the mixture, and it should not be. You guys know that. His DNA should not be there. And on these parts where he is a possible contributor, right here, and Patsy, Burke and Patsy, and Burke alone, no Patsy. Like we talked about, it should never be Burke. He should not be interacting with this material, especially a material that has blood and urine on it. Argue with your mama. Argue with your mom. Because I'm just looking at the forensics. Let me keep going. Because when we look at stuff like this and we go to the next forensic report, and we're talking about the Long Johns, and we have the unknown male right here on part A, exterior top right half. Where else is he? I feel like he's somewhere else. Part B. Okay, so part A and part B. The unknown male is on part A and part B. The exterior top right and the exterior top left of this. Let me make sure. Okay, yep. Right. Yeah. So when we look at the and this is um differentiated from the Wednesdays. This is differentiated from the Wednesdays. These are the Long Johns. And say CBI number 6. Okay. That gives me a little bit more insight. Pants. Okay. Okay. That gives me a little bit more insight then. Okay, cool. CBI number 6 and CBI number 7. Okay, cool. But anyways, exterior top right half, we have here Burke and Patricia cannot be included or excluded. So it's a potential that they're on part 10105B. Exterior top left half of the Long Johns. So when we talk about, even in the CBI reports and even in these forensic reports from Bodie Technology Labs, and they're talking about it's possible that somebody pulled back, the intruder pulled it back and pulled it back up. Well, it's possible that Burke and Patsy touched the top right half of the Long Johns. That's like the waistband. You see what I'm saying? Like that's kind of like the waistband. If I'm being honest, it's like the waistband. So it's just weird. And let me make sure I don't have anything else on this. I don't think so. Yeah. But it's just weird that this is the case. We got possibly your fingerprints on the waistband of pants that Burke said he didn't interact with JonBenet that night. There should be no DNA from Burke on JonBenet's anything because he didn't interact with her that night. That's what you told us. Y'all all said y'all were all asleep. Burke breaks the story by saying, I got up. And you're telling us JonBenet was asleep, but yeah, it's starting to look like JonBenet was up. Starting to look like JonBenet was up as well. But anyways, that's where I'm at, man. We're gonna go through a lot more stuff, so stay tuned, right? And appreciate you watching. Take care of yourself. Shout out to everybody supporting, liking, sharing, subscribing. And until next time, take it easy.